Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It is Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan, and we've got a game to preview here for the Eagles week 14. Isn't that incredible? Week
It is. It's
14.
gone fast. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
gone
it
fast.
just flies.
Well, the thing is, Eagles. When was their bye? Week 5 or something? I know it was really early.
It was early. Remember how that
Yeah.
was considered to be not a great thing for the
Yep.
Eagles and Nick
But
Sirianni wasn't happy about, and then guess what? They needed it that week, and ever since then, they have been on fire.
they haven't lost since then. I mean, it's
Exactly.
crazy. They've won 8 in a row. Holy smokers! There are a bunch of teams have long winning streaks, but the Eagles are one of them. And we'll get into the matchup. On today's show, we'll get injury reports for both teams. We'll get into matchups. We'll get into. We don't talk about this much. We're going to close the show with a betting line because the favorites of over 7.5 points are not covering very much, and the Eagles are a monster favorite. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Yeah. By the way, against the team, I haven't looked, but I'm pretty sure the Panthers have at least covered in their last four games because they won two games in a row at one point, and they weren't favored in either of those games.
Exactly.
And then they lost to the Chiefs by one. I'm sure that point spread had to be double, not by one on
By
the
three.
last minute field goal by
Yeah.
three, right? I remember. I don't know what the spread was, but I think it was 11, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yeah.
then even in their last win, which was a very tight, I'm sorry, their last game, which was a tight game, it was a loss, but and it's my memory is jogged right now. Do you remember who they played last week?
They lost at home, a total choke
Yeah,
to the
they should have won
Bucks.
it.
Yeah, that was bad. That was bad. They lost by
Oh,
three.
that's right. Yes, in overtime, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking they covered that game.
They did. It
Uh,
was if I'm not mistaken, it was a 6 point spread for 6 points that the Bucks were favored by going
okay.
in.
And I'm sure the Saints were favored in Week 9. That although there was in Charlotte, so yeah, you're right. They've covered a number of games. Bryce Young has really improved. He's clearly not what they thought he was as a first pick overall, but he is improving.
Right.
Now the Panthers are look that two tough losses. I'm going to be interested to see how competitive they are after a terrible loss, folks. They only had to cover 30 seconds and they couldn't even do that. The Panthers get the ball back with 30 seconds left and somehow they scored to send the game to overtime. Awful.
You know what's funny? I that you saying that reminds me of a conversation we once had, and I think it was the last time was the last time the Panthers played the Eagles in Philadelphia, the game where the Eagles were up 17-0 going into the fourth and lost 21-17. And I think all they had to do was stop the Panthers one last time with about 30 or 45 seconds left, and they couldn't. I almost feel like that is my last memory of that game. Jim Schwartz was the defensive coordinator. I remember that. I don't remember what year it was, but I think that's the last time the Panthers played the Eagles in Philly. And I do remember the Eagles being up by it had to been 17-0 and then losing, I think 21-17.
Yeah, I was going to say because in 17 the Eagles won at Charlotte. They won
Right. I remember that.
that was a hell of a win. I think it
Thursday
was
night, right?
Thursday or Sunday night. Wentz was phenomenal that game.
Mm-hmm.
That was when Chris Long had he was mic'd up. And he said, he turned, it might have been Bo Allen. I'm not sure. He turned to one of his teammates and said, you know what? I think we're pretty good. You know?
Well, I remember Nigel Bradham had an amazing game as well. He made almost every third down stop in that game. That was an incredible game. And that was the game, Adam, that in 2017, where at the end of it, I was like, you know what? I didn't hear Chris Long say that, but that was the game that I'm like, oh, this might be a way, way better team than I thought. Like a really, really good team. And they were.
Yeah, they were. In fact, that game, they went from 4-1 to 5-1 with a 28-23 game, that win on week 6. But it was early, so you got to be careful. This
Yeah.
is how long this is how long ago that game was. Kelvin Benjamin was their top receiver for 9 for 9. Man, remember that he put too much weight on?
Yes.
And it's ironic because they remember Devin Funchess,
Of course. Michigan guy.
Michigan, who later was moved to tight end, and Kelvin Benjamin tried to come back as a tight end, didn't work.
Hmm.
And boy, Ed Dixon, I remember Ed Dixon,
Yep.
former Ravens tight end, and
Yep.
Russell Shepard. Was Russell Shepard a former Eagle? Or am I wrong about that? I
I
mean,
want to say he was. He
yeah.
did play for the Eagles at one point. Yeah.
And one of my favorite names of all time, Fozzie, don't call him Forrest Whitaker. Remember Fozzie
Ozzie
Whitaker?
Whitaker. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm right. Yeah, I'm looking at the box score now. The Eagles were up 17-0 at home. This is the year after. This is 2018. They go up 17-0 going into the fourth quarter. Then a Curtis Samuel 14-yard rush for a touchdown. They missed the extra point, 17-6. Then Funches, as you just mentioned, catches a touchdown from Cam Newton, and they get the 2-point conversion. So it's 17-14. And then with a minute and 22 to go, current Fox broadcaster, former Pro Bowl tight end Greg Olson,
Who's really good, by the way.
a very, very good player. Yeah, catches a great broadcaster too. You're right.
Yes.
I think that's what you meant. Yeah, he
Yes,
catches the game-winning touchdown. They score 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter to win that game.
All
Wow.
right. I did not know this. Guess who was on the Panthers that year? I know he was on the Panthers.
I know who you were saying because I just saw it myself and I can't believe it.
It has to be. It's Torrey Smith. I totally forgot.
Oh, that's not. I thought you were going to say somebody else. Christian McCaffrey was in that game for the Panthers.
Right. Well, he was also in the one in 17. No, but Torrey Smith, year
That's
after.
right.
Did the Eagles trade him to the
Yes, they
Panthers?
traded him to Carolina.
Okay.
Good memory on that one. Yeah.
Wow. And a guy who led the Eagles in rushing, was it 2018 or 2019? Josh Adams did.
He was it not for the year, right? He led them in a couple of games in rushing.
He actually might have. No, I actually think he did.
Oh
without
my
looking.
God.
I know it was really bad. Like, it was just one of these years where they couldn't get anything going.
From Notre Dame, Josh Allen.
Okay.
Not Josh Allen.
Josh Adams.
Josh Adams. Yeah. Wow.
Whatever his name is. Yeah.
Wow.
There you
Crazy.
go.
So yeah, that game really sticks. That's the last time the Panthers came to play in Philly. That is unbelievable.
Here's another one. A current Eagle who's probably not going to play this season, James Bradbury, was with the Panthers then.
How about that? Revenge game. Revenge game
Yeah.
for James Brad. Oh no, he won't even be seeing the field.
And I got it. Here's a cool one. And this guy favorited one of our
This is unbelievable.
on IG out of the blue. Which one was it? Did he favorite? I'll give the name in a minute. What was it? What did you put out on IG?
It was, I don't know. We make like 5 to 6 clips a week, so I forget which one. And I think it was from our last ITB pod.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Captain Munnerlin, number 41, he favorited it. I didn't even know he's following me. I don't know how he saw it. He favored because he favored it. I was like, and I texted you go because I know you had Warren Sapp one time said something on your IG.
Yeah, about Jalen Carter. He was commenting on
Okay.
Jalen Carter.
Sure.
Yep. But the
Warren's
funny
all
thing
favorite.
is, you text me, do you remember Captain Munnerlin? And I'm like,
Yeah.
Who the hell is Adam texting me if I remember?
Exactly.
I didn't even make the connect. Like, they're playing the Panthers this way. That didn't even enter my mind that he was. I'm like, yeah, former Panther safety. Why? And then you showed me that.
Exactly. No, it was weird. Yeah. So there's your little history. We love going down memory lane when the Eagle. We don't do it every time, but we do it like every 4 or 5 games when it's something interesting that happened.
Yep.
Because look, I totally forgot about that game. They were up 17-0, and that game was at the Link. Oh my man, that
I can't remember too many games I've seen, and I was
bad.
there covering the game. I can't remember too many I've seen like that. You know what? We were both there. Remember we were doing post-game shows from the Link on our phone for the first few.
Oh, it was terrible.
We were doing podcasts from our phones, right? Using SoundCloud back.
That was our first year. Yeah.
The Birds. Yeah.
It was, folks. Remember, I think did we use my tablet or yours?
Yeah, we would lean your phone against something like my wallet in the press box, right? And we would try to sandwich ourselves. This is prior to COVID, before Zoom, before any of these streaming services, and we're just sitting real close in the press box. I think we had Ricky Ricardo in the booth, like doing the Spanish language broadcast post-game show next to it. Hey, listen, man, everybody's got to start like that, right?
Sure.
Real blue collar. But yeah, that game was, I don't remember too many games that turn as fast as that. I think Eagles I even remember tweeting that the Panthers should not have gotten off the bus. And then,
you jigs
the nature of social media being what it is. Boy, did I take a beating.
I'm sure you did. It's like sports reporters are not supposed to say, this game could go into overtime because because beat writers, they want to file their stories before the end of the game. And I did it one time. You know when I did it? I did it for the 2010 game when Eagles were getting smoked at the Giants, and then D-Jax had the return.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who was sitting to my right, and they wanted to kill me. This game's not going to go in overtime, is it? And the
Well,
guy goes, "What are you?" I won't repeat what the guy said. He yelled at me. I go, "Dude, all
uh,
right, I get it, man. I shouldn't have said
at
that,
least, at
but I
least
did.
you jinxed the other team for
I did.
Eagles fans. At least
Yeah. Oh,
that.
and Tom Cough went off on Matt Dodge. I think his name was the punter, I think,
Yep.
for the Giants. Oh, but
Yep.
anyway, we digress.
That was good. I like those trips down memory lane. I
Yep.
remember that game. It was like I said, I've never seen a game turn so quickly. Maybe other than the one you just brought up, but I would say that's a rivalry game. There's a lot of. I mean, that Panthers team had no business scoring 21 unanswered points on the Eagles in that year. That's just a crazy, crazy
And
game.
they were bad. They were 7-9. The Panthers were 7-9. In fact,
Yep.
they wound up having, geez, they had a 7-game losing streak.
Yep.
Eesh,
Yeah.
terrible.
All right, so really good week so far on Inside the Birds. I've got to thank everybody. People have been loving Inside the Tape with Greg Cosell. The numbers have been great. The feedback's been great. I'm glad everybody's enjoyed it. You know, it's one of the newer things that we've done this year. We had him and Clay Harbor doing a sort of similar style show last year, but this year we've changed it up and people have loved it, and that's great and appreciate it. Gun on One was awesome this week with Sal Palantonio. Sal Pal, who is always great because as everybody knows, you know, Sal always seems to get a really good relationship with the head coach of the Eagles on, and he gave a little bit of an insight on what it's like to get to know Nick Sirianni. And Sal also said that he thinks all five members of the Eagles
Mhm.
offensive line should make the Pro Bowl, which would be a record, I think. But we'll see. I think it was last year, 2 years ago, where all five either made it as a starter or an
Oh,
alternate, right? I
alternate.
think all,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's
Mhm.
possible. It's just not all five starting, but it's a great gun on one with Sal Pal. So if you haven't checked that out, check that out. And if you have, we really appreciate it.
Kudos,
And
real
it's,
quick.
yeah,
Just want to say thank you so much for the job you did on this. The show with Greg was my favorite of all of them, and I love all of them. But
oh, me? Oh, yeah. No,
yeah,
no
no,
worries.
because you picked like the perfect plays. And Jalen Hurts fans, you got to see this one. And I'm not look, you can't get the full effect on the pod version because you can't see the tape, but we pick such great plays.
Yeah.
Hurts, I think Hurts is best throw of the year. I know it's not a deep bomb, he's a great deep ball throw, but he threw a big time anticipation throw. You got to see it.
Hmm,
And
that's good. That's
I
good. We should probably rank. Like
so
I
great.
still think the wheel route. I know it's early for week one, but to
Oh, week
Barkley
one. Guy was
because he
great.
put that
Yes, he did.
right past who was the linebacker again? McDuffie was it?
Yeah, Isaiah McDuffie
Yeah,
from
right.
Boston College.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
when we did
It's a
the all
great throw.
22, we didn't realize how close his hand was, or was it McKinney? Either way, we want to know those two.
I think it was
Yeah,
McDuffie. Yeah.
yeah. But no, that was certainly a great throw. The way the linebackers of the Ravens were getting depth on that play action was an excellent throw. Yeah. So I love doing that show. Thank you for saying that, Adam, because I do pride myself
Phenomenal, dude.
on
I was in
putting that together.
awe. I was in because what people don't know is I text you. I said, dude, we can't be showing 20 plays or we're not doing 2 hours.
Right.
But
Because we could. We actually could.
I know. There was there was so much great tape on both sides of the football. Um, Sweaty. Did we show the sweat play, or did we? You and Greg
We
talk about it
did.
after
We
the show
showed
was over?
the specific one where he dropped into coverage to take
Okay.
away not only the slant to Zay Flowers, but then the backside dig by I want to say Bateman. I forget who it
Mhm.
was. So he literally for Josh Sweat to drop into coverage and take two receivers out at different times it was an excellent scheme play too. There was a sim
Yeah.
pressure on it.
Yep.
And Bond did his job of taking away Flowers on the after the he got past Sweat. So it was really good.
But one thing for folks who comment on YouTube, if there's a player you want, now obviously the tape's got to be decent, or if it's really bad and you want to know what the hell's going on with the player, we could also because because Geoff will look for the tape, or if we know if a guy had a good game, Greg will send us his tape notes. So we want to highlight certain things. But if there's a player you want to know about, because we always talk about how great the offensive line is, but we don't really highlight anyone. But maybe Geoff, if you see next week, because I wouldn't I asked Greg about my line. He said there's nothing. He's been very good.
Mhm.
I'm just because they're so elite. We did show in the Cincinnati game. It was ridiculous.
Yep.
Their protection was maybe the best I've ever seen. They created that oval. It was
Right.
just
It's
Jalen
hard to
had a hit.
highlight how
Yeah,
great or really good. Like we could have taken the Barkley 25-yard touchdown because
sure.
Mailata had a really nice pull on it. But
Mhm.
honestly, we try to give stuff that you can't, that TV replayed that, right? We try to give
Yeah.
a few things that the TV broadcast didn't have the time
Sure.
to really pick apart schematically and stuff. But
Okay.
sometimes the Eagles run inside zone. Well, they run a lot of inside zone, and Barkley rips off a great 15-yard run, and the blocking's great, but it's like, it's not necessarily attractive to the eye just to see Jurgens and Becton blocking a three technique a few yards down the field. That's, what do we say about that other than, hey, look,
It's great.
massive
Yeah.
men pushing another
Yeah.
massive man
Exactly.
back.
And one thing before we move on, just to get back to Hurts. So it just shows on that throw that we highlight, the anticipation throw. He gets knocked, and it's true because the tape confirms it that he doesn't like throwing tight windows, but you wouldn't know it by this throw. And I know Irving Fryer, former Eagle. We should, I don't know him. We should reach out, try to get him on here,
That'd be
maybe
great.
for a chalk talk or something. But he'd said on WIP that Jalen simply does not like to throw the ball in tight windows. Like at the NFL level, you have to do it. But this is one of the best throws I've ever seen him make of many. Obviously, in 22, he was ridiculously great downfield.
Mhm.
But this throw that we highlight to AJ Brown, was it 17 yards, maybe something like that?
15
15?
yards on an in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a tough throw. I mean, this was big time. I didn't know, like I saw the notes, but I didn't until I saw it. I was like, holy bleep. Wow.
Hmm.
That I was like, because sitting in with Jaws and Greg over the years at NFL Films, they would teach me the anticipation throws, how Brady would do it, Manning would do it. Only certain quarterbacks would do it. Well, actually, a majority of them didn't make those throws.
Right.
So to say Jalen can't do it is false. He can do it. He's just got to do it. When it's
Yep.
dialed up, you got to make the throw. So
We
I
have
think
never said he can't make
no, some people do.
those
Some people say
throws.
he can't do it. I don't
Right.
believe that. I
Right.
just don't
No,
believe
we've
that.
said it's the consistency
Right.
which with he makes those throws, right?
The
That
willingness.
that has
Got to
been
have the
lacking at time, and
willingness.
the willingness, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
That
the
is the one
willingness.
area. Seeing it and then and making that throw,
Yep.
he's just not as consistent as maybe some of the upper tier passers in the league. But again, he does other things really, really well. So
Yep. Hell yeah. Yeah.
I did want. I'm glad you brought this. All right, I was going to say this for later in the show, but we
Okay.
can address this now really quickly. When I watched the tape of the game, I meant to talk about this last time.
Okay.
One thing that was disappointing to me, Adam, was that, and this is not a Jalen thing. This is more of an offense and maybe in a Kellen Moore thing. I
All right.
feel like of the 11 completions Jalen had, if not all 11, at least 10 were off either RPO, play action, or there was the zone read RPO touchdown to Goddard. It was not sort of conventional drop back. And I don't and so there were certain times on the incompletions that I thought, oh man, why are you running a three-man route there? Against seven in coverage. That's tough. It's tough on Jalen if you only have three guys running routes because you're keeping a couple in, or because everything that you're doing in the passing game is literally based off of the running game. I, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite because we've talked about Jalen's limitations before, but at the same time, like I said, he can make every throw, and
Yes.
I would not like to see the offense now the passing offense takes such a back seat to the run game that they don't at least try for some good advanced passing schemes. Like I said, everything they did against the Ravens and every single completion was sort of a schemed off the run game, whether it's play action under center or RPO. It wasn't like a naturally
Oh, traditional off passing game.
traditional
I got you.
conventional passing game. And
Sure. Drop back game. Okay.
people could say what they want about what we said about Jalen. We've never said don't let this guy throw the football. That's not at all what
No,
we've
they're
ever
not
said.
hiding them. It's just
Yeah.
it's kind of like there's a
But in that
saying.
game, it sort of felt like they were trying to, and I don't want Kellen Moore to get in that
I don't.
regard.
Um.
I know they won the game. I'm not, and I'm listen. It's more about a trend down the road when you have to play teams in the playoffs and you're gonna have to score points.
Yeah,
You can't just do everything off the run game. There's
I
gonna
got
be a
you.
team that
Sure.
bottles you up a little bit, and you're gonna need to throw the ball like four times in a row,
Hmm.
right? And it's gonna have to be some little bit of 2x2, some motion in the passing. It can't just all be RPO and under center play action.
I
That's
hear
all.
you, but I mean, although they really work well off of that. We actually highlight in the show with Greg. Um, in fact, Greg had some great information on Jalen, how good he is at at changing it up and by what he's looking at. So I thought that was really good. But yeah, I hear you on the drop back game. Um, I don't know. I'd have to ask Greg. Maybe I'll remember this for next week with him. Does he remember in 22? Was a lot of that off? We know RPOs were big, but
It was
was
big.
was there still a big drop back game, straight drop back? Was there not? Was it everything off? Or, I don't know if he'd have to in his memory or look at his notes, but anyway, we'll see.
Yeah, we will. All right. Transactions this week. The obvious one that we said was coming last podcast. You can't go into a game against anybody with just one healthy tight end, and it looks like that's the case right now because they have Grant Calcaterra and Dallas Goedert's been out, but they did sign CJ Uzama off the practice squad. He was out of elevations, so it kind of forced their hand in that regard. So they're still light there at the position. They now have Calcaterra and Uzama, and obviously Paris Campbell, who they let go and brought him back to the practice squad. But Adam, two. They got away with two tight ends earlier in the year
I
because
know.
they used Van Sumeren, which we didn't know at the time, as sort of this fullback option. They signed Carrie Blasingame earlier in the week. We talked about it in the last pod. It's really hard to sign a guy and just elevate him immediately. He has to learn the offense. He has to be able to contribute on special teams. So I'm curious to see what they do here.
Yeah, I don't know that Carrie Blasting would play on special teams, to be honest with you.
Well, he did tell Andrew DeCecco
Did
in
he?
a story that Andy wrote. It's on
Okay.
MWBirds.com that he's been given both special teams and offense playbook. So,
No, well, no, I can understand that, but honestly,
Mhm.
he's going to play fullback.
Oh yeah, that's his primary.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't. I mean, yeah. I mean, you could give him you could have him active, but if he plays at all, it's going to be on as a fullback because I'm kind of fascinated. I just didn't see them using a fullback. Did Kellen Moore use one with Dallas? What am I missing? Did he use one there?
I thought he had like an H-back type guy whose name I can't remember
I'm gonna
at the
look it up.
moment, but I think that he did. I don't know that he had one last year though with the Chargers. But I thought 2 years ago they had a guy that they would occasionally throw on the field because when he was with the Cowboys, the only tight ends they had were Ferguson and who's the other guy whose name I can't remember? Was it
Schoonmaker?
Hendershot? No, they
Oh,
drafted.
Peyton Henderson. Yeah, I love that name. That should be like Thurston Howell third. Hendershot, yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. There was another guy. No, Schultz. That's who they had.
Huh?
They had Dalton Schultz and Ferguson, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, actually, they did have fullbacks. They
That's what I
did.
thought. Okay.
And this guy I remember, but he wasn't the quarterback. He was Ryan Nall they used. There was Ryan Nall, quarterback for the Packers many years ago. But yeah, they did use a okay, there we got our answer. So yeah, and then you're right about Pennershot. But yeah, I just the Vance, it's just such a shame that he got hurt, man. What a story. What that's of the great coaching this year. I know it's a minor thing, but as
Mhm.
Greg told us, see it or from inside the building, that's like he had maybe the best hands on the team, which was crazy. It's a shame that he got hurt, but yeah, I mean, last game was Derrick Henry's blocker for 3 years. I mean, let's not forget
Yeah.
he's hit or blocked. But that's interesting that Andrew knew that. He talked to him and said that that they had him learn that the play, they're going to let him look at special teams too. But
Well, you got to
he's hit
think
or blocked.
if you're
Yeah,
that position and you're on the roster and like Van
yeah.
Sumeren was really a linebacker, but he was playing mostly special teams where he was a impact special teams player and then moonlighting as a fullback. So if you're on the roster, you probably have to play some special teams to unless they've got somebody else who's taking that role that Van Sumeren, well, they clearly do now,
Depends
unless
on
that person's
injuries too.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. It depends on injury because Sidney Brown, we'll get into the injuries in a minute. It just depends on Sidney Brown's a gunner, by the way. He's phenomenal at it. What a game he had last week. It depends who's up. Special teams comes down to who's available for a particular week.
right.
That's interesting about last game, but I'm telling you, he could move. Like I remember with the Titans, like the dude, he was a pretty good fullback, and then he went to the Bears. It's just the fullbacks are mostly extinct. What before this season? Was it going back to Andy when they used
Yes.
fullback?
No, Chip.
Did he?
Didn't Chip have Stanley Havili play fullback? Or is that the last year of Andy? It could have been the
Oh,
last
that
year
was
of
Andy.
Andy. It might have been Andy, yeah. Yeah, it was
Oh.
probably the last year of Andy. You're right.
No fullback. Nah, no fullback.
For who,
Because you
Chip?
couldn't. Yeah, because you couldn't call Chris Polk a fullback. He was built
No,
like
there was one guy though who I'll remember his name in a second that they saw who played James Casey, right? He was the sort of
um.
H-back tight end. He would
He was
line
an
up
H back,
offset.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
James. I think isn't he a tight ends coach with the Bengals? I think. If I'm not
Ah, he
mistaken.
could be. He could be. Yeah.
But he didn't. He didn't deliver the mail like Jeff Mail. I shouldn't say that.
Stop it.
Anyway.
Just stop it.
Yeah. Geoff deliver the mail. I love that guy. Anyway,
So anyway, the point is they're still low on tight ends here. They have
yeah.
Grant Calcaterra. They have Uzama now.
Mhm.
We'll see
Jenkins on the
by
practice squad.
Saturday if they're gonna have to. They're out of elevations, I think, on Jenkins.
They are. No, we've talked about that several weeks.
Yeah.
So the strategy is very simple. It's just like you lined it up. Uzama will be the Y tight end. Calcaterra will be the move tight end or the F, and that's it. I mean, now they have you could use an extra tackle or an extra lineman.
Do you think Blasingame will probably get elevated, even though he's only been with the team
I
for?
don't know because you nailed it. He's got to learn the playbook.
Yeah, I don't see how I can do it.
Helens is not a traditional offense. It's a mixture of stuff. So he's got to learn the fullback plays. There might only be three. Who the hell knows? In their playbook. I know Darian Kennard's a pretty good athlete, but he doesn't really dress. I'm just trying to think of the guys of the offensive linemen. Oh, so that's right. Steen went in. I'm sorry. Steen went in last week. Did he not? As an extra lineman.
As an extra lineman, yeah.
Late in the game. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, listen, yes, you can do that if you need to grind it out, sure. And they don't have to. I'm more just worried about like if you get an injury. Calcaterra's had a lot of.
what would happen? No, it
Yeah,
would be on your point about Blast game. They just line him up as a whatever you want to call him, a
yeah,
mixture of a fullback and a tight end, and to use whoever's up, whatever extra tackles are up. Steen would be that guy.
yeah, yeah. And by the way, inside zone is inside zone. If you're a fullback running inside zone, or even if you do a little gap and you're pulling guards, it's not hard for a fullback to know what to
Oh,
do in that
yeah.
situation.
By the way, the blocking receiver, I forgot about it. Johnny Wilson. Duh.
Well, yeah, that's true.
If he plays, yeah, if he plays.
Yeah, not exactly like a tight end, but yes, he is.
That's all he does is block, and then they need to get Jalen's got to get them. Someone said it on the YouTube comments, and I agree. You got to get the ball higher to Johnny. What is he? 6'6"?
Yeah. Yeah,
Or a little
I
higher.
think somebody made a comment that Johnny Wilson should watch tape of Randy Moss and Megatron,
Megatron.
and I'm like, yeah, and I should just read books read by Hemingway, and next thing you know, I'll be the greatest writer ever. Like, come on, those guys were freaks of nature. I'm sure Johnny Wilson has studied like high pointing balls because he's tall, but that's a little, I don't know, that one made me chuckle.
He doesn't need to use his body though. I get the point. He really does.
I got the point. I get the point.
Got to go get the ball.
All right, so those are that's the transactions so far. We'll see if the Eagles make any more, and if they do, we'll talk about it on the pregame show on Sunday with Greg Cosell. Let's get to the injuries, and of course, our injury report is presented by our friends at Stretch Zone. You can get 10% off your first month of a membership by going to Stretch Zone or going online, stretchzone.com, and mentioning Inside the Birds.
And by the way, get the gift of stretching with gift cards for the holidays at stretchzone.com. I'm going to do it. I've got 4 or 5 people I'm gonna get it for who I know need it. Because there's nothing better than feeling great when you get out of there. And just to let people know where you could go in the Delaware Valley, New Jersey, Haverford near Suburban Square, Devon near the Whole Foods, where you'll see me go sometimes, Exton and Whiteland Town Center near the mall. I'll go there a lot. You see John Kincaid or I in there, South Philly near Graduate Hospital, Montgomery County, in Elkins Park, Upper Dublin, Dresser area in the promenade at Upper Dublin off 611, Feasterville, Lower Southampton Village, and in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, near you, on Evesham Road, Mount Laurel, near Greg. Cosell, we got to get Greg in there, Sennington Square, and Wegmans. I know exactly, that's across the street from NFL Films. I know exactly where that is. It's a great shopping center. Franklin Lakes and Franklin Ave, Northfield, Tilton Road, and Princeton, Nassau Park, Pavilion, stretchzone.com.
All right, so Eagles injuries, Adam. Off the report is Keely Ringo. That's a good thing. He was dealing with the calf, so that's always good to see. Excuse me. On it, well, good news for the Eagles. DeVonta Smith was a full participant in Thursday's practice. I think that's the best news that they could have gotten regarding DeVonta Smith, and it shows he's getting a lot closer to being able to play against the Panthers. I would say he's trending toward being able to play as long as there's no setback.
100%. No, there's honestly, I think it's his, I'm going to look this up, but I believe it's his first full practice in 4 weeks. And I'm not talking about a walkthrough because the indication on Wednesday was that had they practiced, he would have been full. He took all his reps anyway in the walkthrough. But look, he's been dealing with this lingering hamstring strain. They're terrible for receivers, man. You can't. Thankfully, he thought better of playing last week and did not play. He tried to play, he just didn't press it good job there. He took all the normal starters reps on Thursday. So unless he has a setback prior to practice, the next day and the dreaded setback when you get tight
Yep.
for practice, that's why he gets stretched. Or something happens in practice, he's going to play. Like again, you nailed it. Unless he has the dreaded setback, he'll be good. He'll be able to play. But the question is, can he play a full game? Who the hell knows?
Well, that we will see. As far as good news, injury-wise, offensively, Mekhi Becton, right guard, was a full participant in practice Thursday, so he will, unless again barring a setback, he'll be able to play against the Panthers. Now, as for the rest of the offensive injuries, not necessarily the greatest news. Johnny Wilson, who you mentioned earlier, still dealing with a hamstring. He was limited on Thursday, and Britton Covey, punt returner, who's had dealing with that neck injury, was also limited. And tight end Dallas Goedert, Adam, which we knew was going to happen, but he did not practice Thursday, and he's going to be out, like we said.
All right, couple things here. So let's get to Covey. So if he doesn't get cleared medically, because he's fine to practice, he's got to get cleared for contact on the neck. Here's the question: do they have Anais Smith return punts and don't use DeJean as a returner? That would be interesting.
I would say no, as Donovan McNabb once said. I'd be shocked. I mean, what they went with Cooper DeJean
Earlier
when he wasn't when Covey couldn't return punts. So
Yeah.
why would they go away from him now?
Well, Vic
Unless
carries.
Vic just bangs the table
I
at him,
know.
which,
I'm
hey,
just saying.
did you listen to Vic's press conference? Does he? You can ask him what the weather in downtown Djibouti is like, and somehow he's going to make some kind of little subtle comment about not practicing enough.
Oh, he loves to
Every
take
single answer.
he loves to take shots. Like clearly something happened in his career with personnel people. Because what happens is the personnel guys, because they draft and they want the rookies to play.
Right.
And Vic's old school, where he wants the guys to earn it first. They don't put him in.
Yeah.
There's that push and pull between coaches and front offices. I know exactly what I've heard this for decades, man. I know what he was talking about, but he always, the other thing is he always has an opinion.
Yep.
He's going to tell you the way he feels. He's very much like Jim Johnson, the late great Jim Johnson, who was my favorite coach of all time to cover. Man, he was just awesome. Vic, I never met Vic. I don't, I watch him in training camp, but he doesn't really say much that I could see.
Literally every comment. What do you think about, Jalen Carter? Well, he's been doing a great job. The reason why he can play all these snaps is because he's been able to get in there and do it in practice. And then he says something about, despite what Allen Iverson said, practice is important.
I love that.
Jalen Hunt's playing. He's had some good snaps. He had some bad snaps. He has to continue to work and get more practice in. Cooper DeJean, well, once we got him on the practice field after the injury, he was able to make up. It's like everything he's saying is a veiled message about getting more practices in. So
he loves it. Yeah, look, he's had an impact. He's had an impact, on their practices. There's no question.
100%. I agree. And I think Nick Sirianni was open to it and knew his defense would need it after last year. They definitely needed it.
Look, just going to say the bottom line, it's working. I mean, it's working. So let's get to defense.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, these concussions. Darius Slay, he took all his reps Thursday. He just needs to get final clearance. No setbacks. He'll be clear to play. Reed Blankenship, didn't do anything Thursday. The only way he could even have a chance to play is he has to get limited time in Friday. To even have there's not enough time for the protocol. You can't you can't not practice during the week and get cleared. It's impossible for you just can't.
Right.
So at least that would have to get some limited practice time in. It's not looking good, obviously, and he does have a concussion history. And Sidney Brown, I looked into this. He actually was on the injury report late last week with a knee injury. I just didn't know about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's I assume it's the same one. I mean, who knows? But you would think it is. Now, he didn't do anything the first 2 days this week. He is a phenomenal special teams player. We'll see what happens today. I don't know. I don't have a good feel for this one.
Well, another reason why if Blasingame is called up, he may have to play on special teams because of everybody that they're missing. So this is actually the same thing with tight end. I mean, they're really down to one starter safety, which would be C.J. Gardner-Johnson, with Reed probably not going to play. And as Andrew DeCecco was reporting, Avonte Maddox was warming up with the safeties because if Sidney Brown can't play, then you're looking at Tristan McCullum, who Vic was very clear. I know we've been asked about this. Vic was very clear. Tristan McCullum is playing right now, not just because Sidney Brown hurt his knee, but he would be playing anyway because he's more ahead in the defense. He's been playing. He's been healthy. He's been playing the defense since OTAs. Sidney Brown missed, all the OTAs, the training camp. He started the year off on what was it, injured reserve or PUP, whatever. He missed. He wasn't playing. So McCollum right now is ahead of Sidney Brown from an experience standpoint, and maybe Sidney Brown will eventually be a better player. But Vic is basically saying right now McCollum's the better player.
Well, and also when McCollum's got a little bit better versatility. Sidney is really a box safety.
Hmm.
The best way that he's used, he's blow the play up and so forth. So yeah, it's a good point because he was really behind, missing the whole entire offseason because he was rehabbing. So it's a tough deal. But boy, he is a special teams player, man. He is a maniac, man, getting downfield. And can we give more kudos to a Braid Man who was I guess he was the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Holy
Yep.
smokes, that's one of the best games I've ever seen here for a punter. Holy smokes, it was good.
Yeah, people ask what's the difference between this year's team and say the one that went to the Super Bowl, and there are some similarities or some differences. One of the differences is you're not concerned about the punter this year. Remember
Oh,
they had two punters on the 53-man roster into the Super Bowl. I've never seen that in my life before. It
who
may have
is it?
happened, but they
Yeah.
had Sipos and they had Kern, both on the 53-man roster for the
Brett
Super
Kern,
Bowl.
yeah, and well, he just lost it.
Right.
That was
They
a
went with
weird deal.
Sipos amazingly in the Super Bowl, and it wasn't good.
No, it was bad, and yeah, that was not Michael Clay's fault. That's just
Right.
the guys lost. They just didn't have it, but coverage is good. Boy, that Michael Clay's got his good, and Tyler Brown and Joe Panunzio, they've done a phenomenal job of with the special teams. Look, one game, Jake Elliott, or actually two, we were like, what in the world? And you just saw last week with Justin Tucker, the best kicker in NFL history, definitely be a Hall of Famer.
Hmm.
What the hell's going on with him? I don't think there's been a kicker in NFL history who was great that didn't at least have some struggles at some point in their career.
Right.
Justin Tucker never had them. It's still now. It's crazy.
No, it's weird. It's almost like seeing like the way Aaron Rodgers is playing. You're just not used to
Oof.
seeing a legend just
Yeah.
not play well. All right. That is it for Eagles injuries. We'll get into the Panthers injuries in a second. Before we go on, Adam, I know the Sixers haven't given their fans a whole lot of encouragement this year, except the rookie, right? The rookie from Duke, Jared McCain.
Oh, so
He's
good. Yeah.
somebody that you might want to pay to go see in person. And we talk about how great it is to see live sports. And even if you don't love what you're seeing from the Sixers, you got to like what you're seeing from the rookie. And if you want to go see him live and watch him play up and personal and, get that real feel for what it's like, then you want to use the Game Time app because we've been telling you how awesome it is with their Game Time Picks feature that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I was actually on the Game Time app the other day just trying to see what kind of holiday concerts and shows there are to take my family to. It's not just about sports. There's just any theater events or shows or concerts that you want to see, and there's always some good ones around the holidays. So you can take advantage of their super deal. I say super because it's actually called the super deal, and there are other great tiers of deals to check out as well when you use the Game Time Picks function on the Game Time app. And of course, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, and that includes event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and of course, their lowest price guarantee, which means Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a better price elsewhere. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, so the Panthers are battling a few injuries. Adam, they've been able to overcome some of their injuries over the last few weeks. Obviously, on offense, Miles Sanders is dealing with an ankle and on injured reserve, but he's not a feature of their offense anyway. 2 years after signing that huge
Hmm.
deal, they are on to Chuba Hubbard, who has himself signed a big deal and is a very good
Yep.
running back.
Yeah, and Jonathan Brooks, the second round of Texas. Yeah, what happened was he came back from his ACL injury, and they instead of doing what other teams told me they were going to do, is they thought he'd be ready early on in the season. The Panthers took a very conservative approach, but here's what happened. Chuba Hubbard got off to a great start. I remember talking to the Panthers about him. They thought he was just a backup, nothing special, just ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
He really came on last year, and then he got off to a great start. And you just mentioned it. They signed him to a big extension. And now they're going to have a two-man backfield, kind of like Jay Stu and D'Angelo Williams, man. It's kind of cool. That look, in that offense that Dave Canales is running, it is predicated on the run.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. But Miles signed a deal for over $6 million a year, and he would have been cut, but his salary is fully guaranteed this season, so they're stuck with him. And as you said, he is on injury reserve, and they think that Jatavian Sanders will get cleared. Okay, he needs to get clearance for getting contact on that neck, but I know they feel pretty good about him getting cleared now. You want to know what the hell's going on with the run defense? Well, losing Derek Brown, who's one of the best D tackles in football, they're going with this. Brown was lost to meniscus surgery. He had the bad one, the full-blown repair. They got a kid, LeBrian Ray, who was a 2022 undrafted free agent signed by the Patriots, and now he's with the Panthers, and he shouldn't be starting, but they don't have anybody else. We'll talk about their front when we preview the game with Greg. They've got the venerable Sean Robinson, who's kind of a journeyman.
Yeah,
they're really bad against the run, man. If you've got Saquon for fantasy, good luck to your opponent, man, because he might crush 200 yards. I'm not joking.
Somebody asked me, I think it was Mike Gill. I think the over/under or the total is like 175 rushing yards for Saquon Barkley. I was like, wow,
what is it?
He asked me, and I assumed he was taking this
joking.
No, he said something like over/under 175 rushing yards.
Get out of here.
Maybe he was just saying. Maybe he just picked that number out of
his own one. Yeah, he goes, "What do you think?"
The fact that I even had to deliberate over it, like that's an under for any running back anytime usually. But the way things are going, it's not like I'd be surprised if it was over.
Well, a couple other things. They lost Shaq Thompson for the year due to torn Achilles.
Mm-hmm.
And Josie Jewell, who played for Vic in Denver, the Eagles, we were told, never made an offer. They weren't interested in bringing him in, which I thought was fascinating. It's another story for another time. He's had a big injury history that probably had something to do with it. So Trevin Wallace, a third round of Kentucky, is filling in for Thompson. Joel, by the way, has a hamstring injury. He didn't work Thursday. He worked a little Wednesday. Usually, if works Wednesday, doesn't Thursday, they're just backing off and the guy plays. But Let's see what happens today. And Clowney's had this lingering knee problem. They weren't concerned about it, but he didn't work Wednesday or Thursday. So we'll see what happens on Friday today. So they've got some injury issues, and boy, their defense, they're good on the back end, by the way. But man, they don't tackle well. They give up big chunk runs, man, a ton of them.
They do. I do like their defensive coordinator. Evero, right? Evero.
Really good.
Yeah.
And he runs Vic. He runs Fangio. Yep.
Yes, he does. He does. But yeah, these are some major, major injuries. To lose Derek Brown and Shaq Thompson, and maybe not have Josie Jewell or Clowney, that would be tough. Something tells me Clowney might play because I know he was interviewed in the locker room and he was talking about how rough Philadelphia fans have been on him when he's played in.
Knocked out. In fact, remember we filmed Mike Pereira at the Super Bowl 20. Was it 2020?
Yes, after he knocked out Carson Wentz.
And Mike said, "This is not a clean play." I loved it because we put it on Twitter. Because I remember I was at Radio Row and you were at home. So we coordinated it, and man, it blew up, on Twitter for a little bit.
Yeah,
now called X. But yeah, they are a little bit banged up, and this should be, in fact, if you're really struggling for a running back, and if the game goes like the odds makers think, maybe a blowout reach for fantasies, Kenny Gainwell. You never know.
So it's funny you mentioned that because I had a fantasy football question for you that I wanted to ask.
Okay.
It's Eagles related. Before we do that, let's stop and hear a word from our great friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you make it out to Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. If not, take advantage of their website. It's a great website, skymotorcars.com. You can see all the inventory they've got. You can learn about buying, trading a car, anything. Yeah, high end, right? What's the word I'm looking? Convenient or conventional?
Budget,
Whatever, yeah,
budget.
budget worth
Yep.
conscious. They got everything. So make sure you just take advantage of all the great things that Cars has to offer. So here's what I was going to ask you because I've been deliberating this on myself. I'm not really happy with one of my flex options. Um, I picked up just to be at the end of my bench Grant Calcaterra going up against a defense that's missing a lot of guys. He's the number one. I'm looking for like, can you get five catches for 46 yards and a touchdown?
Is it PPR?
Yes.
Okay. I'm looking at this week's matchups.
5 catches, 46 yards and a touchdown. Is that not feasible for
Yeah,
Grant
it is.
Calcaterra?
Well, it now if Smitty has a setback, Calcaterra becomes the number 2 pass option. That's different.
I was even assuming Smitty plays. I'm thinking, because again, I think you're going to see a few more passes and completions in this
We
game
keep
than the
thinking
Ravens
that.
one. So
We
let's
keep
say,
thinking that.
yeah, I know. But
Doesn't happen.
let's say Jalen completes like 20 passes. So you get 9 to AJ, you get 6 to what's his face to DeVonta. That's 15. You got 5 more passes.
I got one for you. How about Philadelphia's own Jonnu Smith? He's been on fire
Oh
for
man, if anybody's available, if Jonnu Smith is available in your league, then you're in a league with a bunch of guys living in a cave.
18's probably right.
I'm week 7. He's the highest scoring tight end in
He's been
fantasy.
going off. No, I'm just looking for tight ends who could do well, who might
It's
be
not that I need a
available.
tight end though. I'm just sort of sneaky
Oh.
thinking that Calcaterra as the number 1 tight
Dude,
end.
don't overthink it, man.
All
Don't
right, I
overthink
won't.
it.
I won't.
Yeah.
I
I
won't.
mean, Gainwell to me, blowout reaches don't usually work because what happens sometimes is, oh, the game's not over till like 7 minutes left, and they put Gainwell in. He doesn't score. You feel like a chump,
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
All right. So you convinced me. You convinced me not to.
careful.
I like having. Listen, I'm going to see. The good thing is, I'm doing really well, so I'm not worried about losing a game. If Calcaterra has a good game, chances are Goddard's not going to be back the following week either against the Steelers. So we'll see. So then maybe you say, all right, well, there's a trust here. I can get 4 for 40 out and a TD maybe out of Calcaterra, although the Steelers are a good defense. But the point is I can watch how it goes and see if he becomes more prominent in the Eagles offense because he's the number 1. All right. You brought up the line. The line is 12.5 that the Eagles are favored by. It's going to be a little chilly, although not nearly as cold as it's been. And yeah, you were saying that teams have not. You're saying teams haven't covered line, but teams haven't lost with big spreads like that, right?
No, well, no, they're not. But they're not covering over 7.5. I don't have the number. I don't have it in front of me. The percentage on Sports Grid, we've been talking about it. It's like really bad. Like well, look, their record number of games under 7 points. So that would explain it. But yeah, it's 12.5, 46. Actually, the weather's gonna be pretty nice. Low 50s. Wind, it's gonna be a little breezy, 10 to 13 miles an hour. We'll talk. Well, we all have to give our picks. We went 0 for 3 last week.
Mm-hmm.
We all look. We were just going by what we thought would happen.
We're a bunch of clowns, man.
Yeah, I know people call us names. It's fine. Good. Hey, good for the Eagles. It's good for our business when the Eagles win. But we'll see what happens. I on Sports Grid I did pick the Eagles to cover the number.
Mm-hmm.
They are competitive, but see, I don't see the letdown thing, right? I know people. I know it's a big story here. I get it. They're so focused. Okay, the weirdness of the Jaguars game. They got up big and just crazy stuff happened in that game. Remember?
Right.
Who ran into on the kickoff? The players ran into each other.
Oh,
which crazy.
That's right. I forgot.
Yeah, I mean that's just craziness. Hurts is not turning the ball over. That's the thing. He's just not turning it over.
I agree. It's
see
hard to
it.
sit here and predict like a 34-14 win because games just don't usually go that way all the time. But I could see it, but I also agree 12.5. I never like to bet any type of games where I don't bet anyway, but when I do my pick'ems, I hate those. I hate those games that have double digit spreads. I usually take the underdog to cover, not win outright, but to cover. So it'll be a pregame show. We'll give our picks out on the pregame show.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what Greg has to say about Bryce Young. I'm interested to see what he's got to say because he's playing better. Because I know Greg liked him coming out of the draft, but He's so small, frame wise, and man, his processing was terrible last season.
Yeah.
And he was known as a pretty good processor at Alabama. So he's getting together. By the way, we should mention Adam Thielen's back.
Yep.
We get to see Xavier Legette, who's a pretty talented kid. He's a little raw, but he's starting to come on a little bit.
Yep.
Jalen Coker, I know Andrew talked to him for the
Yep.
draft. He's finally over his hamstring issue. He's back.
They have another guy. I almost thought it said DJ Moore, but it's a D Moore. David Moore, is it?
David. Oh yeah, I remember him from Seattle.
From Seattle, yeah.
Eastern. It might be Eastern Oklahoma. That was a great find for them.
That's not a school, right?
No,
Eastern
it is.
Oklahoma?
Well, remember, Central Arkansas is Scottie Pippen.
Scottie Pippen. Yeah, I've heard of Central. I've never heard of Eastern Oklahoma.
No, only reason why, because I remember I think they got him the seventh time. It's a real sleeper for them. But he was with Dan Morgan, the GM in Seattle. That's probably why he's there. But
that's awesome. I don't know why I think that's great. I've just never heard of it.
I know, who knows? But this is a fascinating game. I don't see the trap. We'll see if I'm right. I really don't. This is, again, for the 90th time. There's nothing to do with last year. They don't look like the same team. The defensive staff's different. Why? I don't know why people talk about it, but I'm done. I'm putting a moratorium on talking about last year. I need to beat myself over the head.
Absolutely.
I'm going to take this FiOS remote and hit myself over the head if I'm talking about it again. Anyway.
So let me ask you this. We'll end it on this, because some people have talked about the idea of a trap game with the Steelers. I don't believe in that concept in general in the NFL. I don't think when a team loses, it's looking ahead.
I've talked to coaches before that have said, you know what? I think we're full of ourselves that week. I'm not talking about any particular team, just talking to coaches and years I've covered the league.
Right.
I'll say, hey, what happened to you guys last week? Like, matchups look good for you. We had we didn't practice well, or you might have heard this stuff before. I have.
Mm-hmm.
I thought our warm-ups were terrible. I thought we weren't focused.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And
rare,
I wonder, is that a trap game based on the opponent, or just it's hard week after week after week to keep
probably that? I think the latter. But man, they're don't you think this defense is machine-like right now?
It does seem that way, and I do think the youth helps that. I think that they are so focused on getting better, going out there, proving themselves, whether it's Carter, whether it's Cooper DeJean, whether it's Quinyon Mitchell, or Reed when he's healthy, obviously Zach Bond. I think that's their advantage, is that none of these guys are all pros yet or Pro Bowl. So they're out there. They haven't they're not old enough in the game to be able to take a practice off, because they're still getting, Vic will tell you, he's still giving an earful to Jalen Carter in practice, and he's still not thrilled.
I'd love to see that.
Zach Bond does,
See, I only know him of the funny quips in press conferences, and I know he had some clashes with his coaches over the years, especially with Denver. That was a weird situation when he was the head coach there. But your point's so good, because they're not entitled young guys. It's not like they've been in the league, like you were talking about, 6, 7, 8 years where, oh, I'm not doing that. Or, with the Dolphins, something happened with Vic last year with his players. Like, they just didn't want to do it. They didn't want to run the defense.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want him back. I mean, let's tell the truth. They did not want him back.
And I think that the youth element that he has here is is a difference from that Miami team that had a lot of veterans on it, especially in the backfield. Had guys like Ramsey. I know Ramsey was hurt last year for the first whatever.
David Howard, yeah. Ramsey,
Howard, yeah. So it might have been that kind of case where the guys were like, not surprisingly though, the free agent linebacker who had a lot to prove played well, right? The kid who signed with Minnesota, that Zach
Van Ginkel.
Yeah. So not surprisingly, a young guy played well in that defense, but it seemed like the veterans were like,
well, he loved it. No, he loved the defense. In fact, he wanted to come here, but from what we were told, the Eagles never made an offer. It's just they weren't paying $10 million what he got per year, and he was coming off a broken foot. But the buy-in is to finish this off. The buy-in is about as good as I've ever seen it with the coaching staff. We told you Clint Hurtt's a stud, great coach. This Bobby King, I didn't realize how good of a coach he is. Coaching matters. We'll continue to say it till you tell us to stop. I know some people tell us to shut up. I get it. But we just want people to understand, yes, players are super important. Obviously, they're playing. But no team ever is great without good coaching. As Sirianni says, you can't be great without the greatness of others. I think that's a great axiom. I don't know who the hell he stole it from. That's a really good one.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely a great one. All right. That was great content, my friend, because it's you and I together. And of course, we'll produce more great content with Greg Cosell when we do the Inside the Birds pregame show Sunday morning. So that's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.